Pete Carroll, the oldest coach in the NFL, Pete Carroll, he claims that his Seahawks have not one, but two quarterbacks who are more than worthy of getting out on the field. Quote, we may have two number ones. Carroll, with, we hope, tongue-in-cheek, told the reporters. We don't think his tongue was in the cheek. He was discussing the competition between Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Yikes. All right, now that is a stunner from down under. So let us discuss the question, how do you interpret Pete Carroll saying we may have two number ones? Those words on the Seahawks quarterback situation. So I've got Ice Cube, Misery Index, and Patch, but not Garbage Patch. Kids, anyway. And we'll combine all these things together, and we are going to make the Baba Ganoush again. We're going to make the Baba Ganoush is what we're going to do. All right, so to kick off here, Pete Carroll, let's point out that he did use one of the great weasel words of our time, may. Right? I may be the greatest person in radio. I may have a lot of money. Neither one of those things is true, but they may be true. Right? May. Right next to up to. If you've ever gone shopping in a brick and mortar mall or online and you look at the sale and they say up to 75% off, and you're lucky if you get 5% off. But I digress. So Pete Carroll also has to think that his hardcore fans of the Seahawks are hayseeds. Right? Now, we understand that there's some weasel terminology. It's called coach speak. And Pete Carroll, of all coaches, sells unbridled optimism. He's hardwired, like Pavlov's dogs, to see the glass as half full. As a talk show host, we see the glass as half empty and falling apart. He's memorized those Tony Robbins self-help books like Daydreamer and Night Thinker. Geno Smith and Drew Lock combined together, if you put them both under center at the same time like a two-headed dragon, would not be worth a bucket of warm spit. That's how bad they're. Pete Carroll thinks he can artificially make these guys into quality quarterbacks, or at least he's trying to sell that like a snake oil salesman. He's trying to speak it into existence. He needs to get some wisdom from one of the great entertainers of our time. A little long in the tooth now, but he's still doing commercials. Ice Cube, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. The Seahawks are on a collision course with a historically bad season. Now, furthermore, who's actually got a leg up in the Seahawks quarterback derby? And it's appropriate using the term leg up because we're talking about dogs. And what do dogs do? They put their leg up when they urinate on a fire hydrant. Nevertheless, I'm leaning in a heavy lean to Drew Lock, at least at the start, and I'll tell you why. He's the new guy. And you get the new guy cred when you're the new guy. Doesn't mean he's good. He probably sucks as much as Geno Smith, but he benefits from the shiny object syndrome. Now, that said, the MALLER Misery Index on the Seahawks quarterback situation is right next to that of the Misery Index in Venezuela or Zimbabwe. It ain't good, right? I'm not going to pull punches on this. Under any calculation, it's like picking between the electric chair or the guillotine in terms of being a playoff team. You know how that's going to end. We're looking at 3-14, 4-13, 5-12 if everything goes great. Geno Smith has played enough to show that he's a tomato king. We know that. His claim to fame. What is the thing that Geno Smith is famous for? Do you remember what Geno Smith is famous for? I remember. It's one of the great monologues I've ever done when I talked about this guy, Geno Smith. He was playing quarterback for the Jets. His claim to fame, if you don't remember, maybe you do. I think you might remember. His claim to fame with the Jets, they were playing in San Diego against the Chargers years ago, and he was late to a team meeting. The reason he was late to a team meeting is he revealed that going to West Virginia does not teach you about how time zones work. He was unaware of the different time zones, the Pacific, the Mountain, the Central and the Eastern time zones. He had no idea how that works. Like, no concept. He miscalculated the 3-hour difference. Somehow he was able to see the movie. He was at the movies. From the Eastern time zone to the Pacific time zone is one of my favorite NFL stories. That at that time, he was a first round or second round pick, whatever it was. He was a high draft pick. He was projected as a starter and was getting opportunities with the Jets, and he couldn't even figure out how time zones work. And then you have Drew Lock. Now, he hasn't done that, Drew Lock. He's just been mostly blah in his brief time with the Broncos, with a couple of really good performances that look like they're outliers when you look at the rest of the way he has performed. Now, parting shot. So how does this play out? We said in Seattle that Drew Lock has the edge, but how does this play out for the Seahawks? So Drew Lock and Geno Smith, ultimately, Pete Carroll is going to get his wish because they're both going to end up playing on the merry-go-round, the merry-go-round of suck. But the Seahawks, what they've done with their depth chart on offense is they have formed the NFL's version of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch at quarterback. It is a collection, not Garbage Patch Kids, just the Garbage Patch, right? It's a collection of marine debris, the vortex of trash. I was watching a documentary about that Great Pacific Garbage Patch recently, and the vortex of trash that's out there. And that's the Seahawks quarterback position. Pete Carroll doesn't seem to mind. He does not mind. I'll tell you why. I got a theory. My working theory on why Pete Carroll doesn't mind is because nobody will object when he runs the most archaic offense you have seen in 40 years. And he can go in the way back machine. Ground and pound. 1980s, early 1980s style football. 40 years ago. Rudimentary offense. Play hide the quarterback. And so while you have to play slop like Geno Smith and Drew Lock, they're going to throw like 15 or 20 times a game, run the ball. Pete's going to try to get back to win with defense and the running of the football. Can that work? Can you win in an internet world where you're using a typewriter? We'll find out.